Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling the foundations of equity and corporate scaling. Now listen, we're not just going to stand here and throw around boring financial buzzwords today. Nope, we're going to build a deep, unshakable foundation of how the financial world actually operates, right from the ground up.
If you really want to learn the stock market inside out, we honestly can't start with ticker symbols or fancy trading strategies. As a curious student of finance, you've got to ask one massive, foundational question to kick things off. Why does the stock market even exist? I mean, it's such a brilliant, simple question, right? But it's kind of crazy how few people actually stop to ask it. If you strip away all the flashing numbers on the screens and the yelling on the trading floor, what is the actual fundamental purpose of this whole system?
Well, the answer really boils down to this one guiding principle. To understand the stock market, you first have to understand why companies exist and, more importantly, how they scale. Okay, let's dive into this.
To answer that massive question about the global financial system, we actually have to, zoom all the way in, start extremely small. I want you to imagine opening a local business. Specifically, let's say a local bakery. We're taking this massive, intimidating concept of the stock market and bringing it right down to Main Street. You've got an idea, you have a huge passion for baking, and you decide you want to open up a little shop right in your neighborhood. But obviously, starting a bakery requires capital. Let's imagine it costs you exactly $10,000 to get this bakery off the ground. That buys you your commercial ovens, tons of flour, all your ingredients, and it covers the first few months of rent for the physical space. Now, to start this journey, you take that $10,000 directly out of your own savings. You pay for the whole shebang entirely yourself. Because you paid for absolutely everything out of pocket, this bakery is what we call a sole proprietorship. That's your baseline business structure. It literally means you own 100% of the business and you take all the profits, which is great. But, and here's the flip side, you also bear all the risks. If the bakery fails, well, that 10 grand you would cost was entirely your own. Now that makes total logical sense, right? You pay for it, you own the whole thing. But let's put on our analytical hats and ask the logical next question. What happens if your bakery becomes wildly successful, like lines around the block successful? What happens when being a small local sole proprietorship just isn't enough anymore and you really want to scale up? What if you want to open 500 locations across the country? You want to take that one awesome local bakery and turn it into a massive nationwide chain. Well, this exact desire to grow from just one shop to 500 is exactly where the scaling problem lies. Because to build those 500 new locations, you need money, a lot of money. Let's say $5 million. And the cold, hard reality of scaling is that your sole proprietorship just cannot fund this out of pocket the way you funded those original $10,000 ovens. That money simply isn't in your bank account. So how do you get it? Now, this brings us to what seems like the most obvious, everyday solution to needing cash. It's the path almost anyone would naturally suggest. But trust me, it is fraught with immense danger for a rapidly scaling business. You might naturally ask, hey, why not just go ask a bank for a loan? I mean, it seems perfectly logical. We do it for cars, we do it for houses, so why wouldn't a wildly successful bakery just ask a bank for $5 million to expand? Well, let me break down the business logic of why taking this route is so incredibly dangerous. First off, banks are notoriously risk-averse. They don't just hand over $5 million on a hope and a dream, right? They require collateral, and they charge a hefty amount of interest. If your big nationwide expansion fails, and let's face it, businesses fail all the time, the bank doesn't care. You still owe them millions of dollars plus the interest. Bearing that entire massive burden all on your own, that will almost inevitably lead you straight into personal bankruptcy. So the crucial point is, you absolutely must avoid the trap of borrowing huge sums of money that you're forced to pay back with interest. You actually need a completely different structural solution to fund your nationwide bakery dream. You've got to step away from the bank loan idea entirely. To avoid that massive interest and the looming, scary threat of personal bankruptcy, you have to fundamentally change how your business operates. Basically, you transition away from being a sole proprietorship, where you hold 100% of the ownership and 100% of the risk, and you transform your business into a corporation. This structural shift, this is the exact real-world mechanism that allows companies to scale up without relying on crippling bank debt.
So to solve that $5 million problem, you take your newly formed corporation and you slice the ownership of your bakery into, say, 1 million digital pieces. You're no longer just one person holding one giant piece of risk. You've effectively divided the entire company into a million tiny fractions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. Instead of owning the entire pie yourself and white-knuckling all the risk, the bakery is divided up so it can be shared. You sell these individual slices to other people to raise that $5 million you need. The beautiful part is, the risk is now distributed among everyone who holds a slice, completely and totally debt-free.
Which brings this entire explainer full circle, directly answering our very first question. What do we call these digital pieces of ownership in a corporation? We call them shares, or stocks. The stock market exists as the exact marketplace for people to buy and sell these slices. It literally exists so that local mom-and-pop bakeries can scale into nationwide powerhouses by sharing ownership, rather than taking on deadly debt.
So there you have it. You now possess a deep, truly grounded understanding of what equity actually is. It's not magic, and it's definitely not just gambling at a casino. It's the fundamental, structural way human beings collaborate to scale businesses. So as we wrap up this explainer, now that you understand exactly what a stock represents, that it's a real, tangible fraction of a growing, breathing business, the only question left is, how many slices of the bakery do you want to own?